Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. Obviously, Hawks lose tonight to the Bucks in a tough game. Obviously, these two teams always play each other down to the wire. So to talk about the game tonight, brought on my guy, Chris Tipmore, A1 forever. Also over at Digest Hawks as well. If you want to follow us, subscribe to his YouTube channel over there. He does his own Atlanta Hawks content on there, doing a great job. Definitely really good content to check out for sure. Chris, how you doing today, man? How you feeling after the game?
Oh, man, it's with a grain of salt, man. You know, you really wanted to get this victory. And honestly, man, this has really turned into a real deal rivalry. You know, so you think about it going all the way back to the Eastern Conference Finals between these two teams and just the record. And we always seem to match up pretty well against the Bucks. Mm-hmm. And this is a game that was nothing short of that. So this has really turned into a rivalry. The series is tied for the season series now, 2-2. Still one more round to go. So we'll see how it goes, man. But I'm feeling great, though, overall.
Yeah, and obviously the reason why we played the Bucks 5 times this year since we played them in the NBA Cup, that counts as an extra game. It's the reason why we're also playing the Knicks one more time also during this season. So, yeah, as you mentioned, man, it was a tough game, obviously. I mean, the Hawks, you would love them to get that first game of the 6-game homestand, started off with a win, obviously get to 2 games in a row as well. You're just trying to gain standing in the standings. But, I mean, you know, obviously I don't think it's going to run away from them. I don't think Magic or Miami are about to run away with anything. So the Hawks are still very much in it. But like you said, you need wins. And so they couldn't get one tonight, but they'll have another opportunity on Thursday. But, Chris, for this game, there's a lot of positives, a lot of negatives. What were the biggest things that stood out to you from tonight's game?
Well, the fact that the Hawks continue to do something that they do all year long, man, they continue to fight. And this was a game of runs when you really look at it. You know, Hawks going on a 10-2 run, then Hawks going on like another 8-2 run, you know, to end the third to go into the fourth quarter. It was a game of runs. Both teams were doing that. I noticed that. But also, Hawks still winning the points in the paint battle. Hawks still winning the bench points. And also, the Hawks actually had another game, you know, back-to-back nights where they had under 15 turnovers. So, you know, I take that into accountability that, like, hey, they're cutting down the turnovers. That's going to, if they continue that trait, that actually will equal more wins because that's equal more possessions for the Hawks. You also will see more points, you know, so hopefully, of course. But yeah, man, the standing out is just ultimately too much Giannis and Dame, you know, especially when the whistle, under the whistle, especially in the fourth quarter. Underrated thing that happened for the Bucks too was the emergence of Kevin Porter Jr. in the fourth quarter. And that's the second time now that he's actually burned the Hawks. When you think about back in the NBA Cup, he had some good minutes for them as well. So, I mean, with all that being said, the Hawks still had their opportunity to win this game at the very end. So the Bucks gave you everything that they could give you, but the Hawks still had opportunities. And when it comes down to it, win or lose, all you can ask for is opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you want in those situations. But, you know, these games have been really tight for the Hawks as of recently. You know, this is what you get into when you're playing playoff teams. And so it's part of the experience of them growing together as a team. Quinn's mentioned it a couple of times. He didn't coach tonight due to an illness. So Igor got the call tonight to be the head coach tonight from him, the offensive mastermind, as they call him. But, you know, it's one of those things where you just hope to continue to, you know, grow from these experiences. I know a lot of Hawks fans don't want to hear that, really, but that's where the team is.
Especially after a loss. Especially
after a loss. But that's what the team is with a lot of the type of players that they have on the roster. So, you know, you continue to build off of that. And then, you know, you also have to look at the Bucks are just a team who the Hawks, ever since the Eastern Conference Finals, has just been a team that the Hawks play tough. It's almost like that. You know, if we're ever going to make a run, if we're ever going to make that push, this is the team that stopped us, you know, from getting there. And so there's always a little bit more there with it. So, you know, I think that's another reason why these games are always down to the wire and very competitive. There, like I said, there were some positives and nice to take away as well. Mo Gay had a great game tonight. You know, hit 4 threes tonight, I believe. You know, gave great rim protection, which he also did in the first game, I think. I want to say it was after the break. I think we played the Bucks, or one of the first games after the break, we played the Bucks. And Gay also gave us a really strong performance then.
The game where Giannis didn't play last time.
It was before the break, but yeah.
Yeah, Giannis didn't play last time, February 7th, I think the game was. But but either way it goes, like still, you got to give your credit to Mo G. And then that block in the fourth quarter, it just hitting that, and then next thing you know, LeVert with the 3 in the corner to tie the game. You really just felt like, okay, man, the Hawks about to pull one out again. And but Mo G had some great minutes. Honestly, man, I got to give Mo G his credit. I got to give Karis LeVert his credit again. Back-to-back nights, you know what I'm saying? We needed every point that he gave us, 21 points tonight. But let's give a shout out to Terrence Mann, who also played well on both ends. Yes, played well on both ends. He was 4 of 6 from 3. So that's 66.7%. You love to see that. That's 12 points as well. Again, like I said, played well on both ends of the floor. The Hawks had every opportunity to win this game. That's why it's like, okay, there's nothing that Milwaukee did to me that ultimately just was like, oh man, they just overpowered the Hawks here and there. And then the Hawks was able to get out and run against these guys, something that they're normally able to do. That's something that the Milwaukee always wants to limit, but they was able to do that tonight. Hawks had 28 fast break points compared to 17 as well. So we were able to get out in pace. It's just at the end, you think about that fourth quarter, you think about the 2 floaters that Trey missed, you think about a couple free throws. You also think about the 3 that Niang missed. Somebody, by the way, who did look like he was dealing with the illness, his shot, you think about that. And I know he's not the fleetest of foot, but I mean, he did seem like a little step slow, like he was dealing with the illness or something, or just trying to get it over with. So just a couple of grains of salt. And the fact that, you know, the glaring fact that we were on a back-to-back, brother. We just was in Memphis. I know it's not far, but we still had to get on a plane, fly back to Atlanta, and play a game against a tough Bucks team that, you know, we always play tough, but they're a tough squad over there, especially when they do have Giannis.
Yeah, and I think you know, a couple of people on Hawks Twitter mentioned it. You know, you're coming back. You're not actually getting a full 24 hours after the last game you played, because remember, you go an hour, I believe, back if you go to Memphis, and then you're going an hour forward coming back to Atlanta. So you're really getting 23 hours after your last game, not even full 23 hours after your last game, because you didn't get the 24th hour to really get back in the flow of things. So I think the Hawks really, for the most part, they were able to handle it pretty well. I think there were times, I know my guy Glenn Willis mentioned at the end of the third quarter, he felt like they were a little bit gassed, felt like they started to get some heavy legs. Fourth quarter came back with some energy. I think certain guys came back with different types of energy. It's one of those things where, like, back-to-backs are always tough because of just how much, you know, the game wears on you and things like that, especially as you've gone through the season. And, you know, but to still give out the performance they had, I think just shows the resiliency of this team as they continue to move forward in that regard. But, you know, I think, and I'll give Igor credit for this. You know, in a game against the Bucks, you know what type of game it is. Your bigs got to come ready to play. Giannis is coming downhill. Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis didn't play tonight, but obviously Bobby Portis would be a part of that. They have some bigs, and I commend him for seeing the flow of the game, seeing Mo Gay's making some threes and going with Mo Gay.
You're right. That's outside
of that one possession. Exactly. Outside that one possession, where they needed a 3, which I understand why they brought in Georges Niang, because he's technically the better 3-point shooter, and he had a great look when you know, and on that one of those possessions. But you know, this was not a game Niang needed to finish, because you would rather not have it just be a Kongu and just hope and pray in God that we can handle it. And you know, some people are asking maybe why Zach didn't play again.
There you go.
This is a situation where with Zach, the issue again with the Bucks is the biggest thing you're thinking about is Giannis.
Right.
Zach can't guard Giannis. I mean, he can guard him in terms of if you're talking about length, if Giannis is trying to shoot over. But if you're talking about just pure strength, Giannis is going to come down here and put a shoulder into him and move him out the way. So, and you could maybe say Gay's the same thing, but I think that's why if you think about how they use Gay tonight, they use him more as a weak side defender, not the primary.
Right.
Because weak side, then at that point, it's just Gay using his length and athleticism to contest shots instead of making him the primary defender, and Okongwu was the primary defender on him instead. So really, really good that Gay was able to kind of basically finish the game for the Hawks. And like I said, it's one of those things with guys. I've said with Garrison, Bogey, others. I mean, if you hit shots, I feel like you deserve more minutes, and I think you have to make that decision as a coach during the game to say, are we going to go with this guy? Because that 4 position is always interchanging. You can go with Niang most nights. You can go with man. They did because Niang was not playing. They went man.
They did.
You can go with Gay. You can go with even Rishishe. So like you have options. It's just a matter of what is the best. Yeah, lineup. Who's playing the best? What's the best thing for that particular game?
Absolutely agree. And as far as too, you just think about what the back-to-back too. That's another reason why you didn't see Moji last night, because I know people were wondering, where's Moji against Memphis? But I just look at it as the Hawks, because a lot of the guys that played last night, well, not a lot, but Barlow, Matthews, Wallace all played last night. They did not play tonight. So, and Moji, he didn't play last night. Of course, Niang, he was dealing with the illness. He didn't play. So you kind of, that was another thing too, that the Hawks were managing minutes and on this back-to-back, knowing that we have a day in between and we're still going to be at home. And then we have those pesky Pacers coming in for 2 games back-to-back. Still going to be at home. And you look at those games and you're like, there may be some running up and down the floor in those games, possibly high scoring. Let's go ahead and just kind of manage the guys with this big stretch coming up, even though it is at home. Let's just manage the guys' minutes as well, too. Just something to consider.
Yeah, definitely. And so, like I said, this 6-game homestand will allow them to get rest. They don't have to travel. You can put the travel bags away for a little bit, and just kind of
finally can unpack.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're at home for 2 weeks. So obviously starting today, so they'll be able to just kind of lock in. But the Hawks have struggled at home as well. They haven't won a home game in the last few games, so they need to get over the snide and do that as well. What would you say tonight about just, we mentioned Caris LeVert in the bench. The bench had another strong game today. Can you just talk about, Man, LeVert, and Niang, and just, I know some people are indifferent about the guys depending, because like Hunter does well and people feel some type of way about that. But can you just talk about the impact they've been making, especially Terrence Mann and LeVert, since they've really came alive in these last 2 games?
Yeah, man. Those guys, the thing about when you got Terrence Mann for Bogey, it made you be optimistic because you know what Terrence Mann can do. We've seen him guard Trey. We've seen what he can do against people in the playoffs, teams in the playoffs, So I was optimistic about him. I just always said that Caris LeVert was the wild card of it, because if he can stay healthy and be consistent in his play, he's going to make this trade pretty much, to be the cap off and be like, all right, so the Hawks won the trade because of this, or they lost the trade because of that. Niang, you knew you need shooting. So if you're going to send Bogey out, you needed to get some kind of shooting back. Now, does he move like Bogey? No, but at least he can play the 4 and can be a stretch 4 position. He gives you 3. He's right now, you can pretty much say he is the best 3-point shooter on the team right now. I think that's safe to say. And so Niang, he's come in and he's that veteran. All 3 of these guys, they know how to win, though. They've been on winning teams. They had playoff experience, all those things. You need to bring that around young guys like Dyson, young guys like Moji, Rishishe. We have a lot of young guys. And, outside of the guys that we brought in, it was only, like Trey and Dre and Bogey anyway. But Bogey was going down. But the Hawks still did. Both of these guys are solid, sending them to two teams that are contending for the playoffs. So ultimately, man, Caris LeVert, he is a SGA-like player. He can get hot. He can score. He can give effort. He plays both ends of the floor. The Cavaliers fans, they miss him tremendously. Like, they would have been happy with just sending off George Niang and draft picks if they could have kept Caris LeVert. I'm telling you what I've been speaking to Cavs fans and like having them in the chats and stuff like that. They all miss Caris LeVert, and they do miss Niang, so for his 3-point shooting, just being that guy that, hey, he can spot up and he can shoot it. And we've seen that already so far with our Atlanta Hawks. The reviews, for me, I know it's still early. It's only like 10, 11 games in, but you think about it. The Hawks aren't in a lot of these games if we don't have the play of Niang, Mann, and LeVert.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think, too, I posed the question yesterday, and I got a lot of reaction to it about, even re-signing LeVert next year.
You have to.
Because Man's under contract, so he'll be here unless they trade him.
Mm-hmm.
Niang and LeVert are also free agents coming up, and obviously the Hawks want to get some contracts off the books this offseason to free up some money for potential extensions, and then we'll see if they do anything else. But I've also said, too, just because I feel like he fits what Quinn wants to do, plays aggressively, plays fast, and he's also a guy who LeVert is like, and I mentioned this yesterday. I said the difference between him and DeAndre Hunter is like DeAndre, like for a lot of time he has to be set up, or like if you get him good in the post, like he can make something happen. LeVert is a guy who, exactly, and even that wasn't as bad as it's been in previous years for him. But
this was his best year at that, as far as like dribble drive. This was his best year at that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's things he made in strides and improvements on. But LeVert can pretty much just be like, all right, give me the ball and get out the way. And so, I think that's the big difference is that he can kind of just like, if Trey's trapped or something, LeVert can kind of just take it and create. And I think with that, I think it's tough to say you'll move off of him. I think obviously the big thing you'll want to wonder about is, okay, how many other teams maybe would be interested? What does that number look like? What are the Hawks willing to do to bring him back? That would obviously be the big thing you have to decide for the front office. But I mean, you may look at some bigger options. Obviously, I think every time Katie's been available, the Hawks have called the Suns. So, I'm assuming Katie will be, as far as we know, all indications say Katie will be traded this offseason. So the Hawks will probably call them again. And we'll see if that, if anything happens with that. But if you don't land him, I feel like you just say, all right, well, we kick the tires on that, and let's see what Karras can do. Maybe sign back to another 1-2 year deal and kind of go with that, and then you kind of formulate the rest of your bench. So you pretty much have those two, because I feel like Niang definitely is like a rental for the rest of the season. Yeah, I just think even with the shooting he brings, I just think you got Jalen coming back. So I mean, you have their backup four is a question, but I mean, right now you have two guys in Barlow and Gay that you have on full NBA contracts that you could put there at the 4 next year. So if they want to go in that direction, who could probably, obviously they're not the shooters that Niang is, but they're better defenders and still probably fit what the Hawks want to do. So you could probably survive with that as well. So that's definitely something to look at as we progress through the season. I know it's still some, like you said, a little bit early in the process, but something to definitely keep an eye on, obviously moving forward tonight.
Definitely.
How do you feel about Zach's performance tonight? Obviously, he didn't have the game he had yesterday, but how did you feel about how the Rook played tonight against the Bucks?
He still gave you good minutes. I know it's not going to show up in the box score. You're going to see, you look in the box score, you're going to see, oh, he didn't have a great game. He only gave you 7 points, blah, blah. I get it. But ultimately, it's on a back-to-back. You think about some of his looks. He had good looks. It just wasn't going down. You got to consider like personally tired legs and everything, considering, again, being on the back-to-back. Zach's playing some minutes. They really still did cap him off still. And I was wondering if it was going to be anything changed with that, but it was not. And it was not. So it was all good. It was all good. But I mean, he still got a few minutes in the fourth quarter. He took one shot and he missed that. But ultimately, I feel like as far as on the defensive end, rebounding, just being on the floor, Zach still gave you quality minutes. He needs these type of minutes against opponents like the Bucks, the Knicks, et cetera, et cetera. Those top teams, so he can gain that experience. And one thing about Zachary Ricochet, who is the Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month, by the way,
sir,
I feel like he is gaining more confidence. And to your point about KD, now KD is one of my favorite basketball players that's ever played the game. But even with him, I know what I'm going to get from him. I kind of still want to take the OKC route and not allow veterans to get in the way of the progression of my young players. So guys like Dyson, guys like Zachary Ricochet, if I have to gut my team to go get KD, which most likely you're probably going to have to do, I don't want to necessarily do that. I honestly probably would bring back Caris LeVert if I could, bring him back to the Hawks. I think LeVert likes playing with the Hawks. I know it's early, but just how he plays on both ends of the floor, playing with Trae Young, I think LeVert, Niang, and Terrence Mann all enjoy playing with Trae Young so far, and just the Hawks in general. But you Ricochet, and you think about when Jalen Johnson does come back, And you think about even this season when Vit Krejci and possibly Larry Nance come back, what we could possibly be, because we are missing weapons. Both of those players that I just named can shoot the ball, put the ball in the basket from behind the arc, and just like help be utility players that you need. So you got to think about that as well too. We're not full strength. You think about it in that Magic game, if we never lost them in that Magic game, I do believe we would have been able to eke out a few more wins, that because these games mostly has been close. So I feel like we would have been able to eke out a few more wins. It's something to still be optimistic about. And we are still in the play-in area. We're still chasing the Magic. So we still have a good opportunity to catch the Magic. We're just like still one game behind them or a game and a half behind. They're not running away. So we still have an opportunity to catch them and possibly get into either that 7th or 8th spot, somewhere you want to be, regardless. Even if you have to be in the play-in, that's where you want to be, because even if you do lose, at least you get one more opportunity, more so than that 9 and 10 spot, to where it's just one and done, son.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Vit Krejci was called down to the Skyhawks. He was called back up to the Hawks, probably to get him some practice time. That probably means Vit Krejci is returning soon.
Yes.
Maybe next game we'll see where he is with his recovery. When obviously I made this mention today, when Vit Krejci was healthy, the Hawks did run a 10-man rotation, because I think Vic showed Quinn he deserved to still get minutes. It'll be interesting to see if when Vic comes back, will they go back to a 10-man rotation, which I think could be really good. Just because Krejci also can help with that unit when Trey's off the floor. He helps Dyson kind of with ball movement and keeping the offense going, and then obviously having to balance out the minutes. So that's something obviously keep an eye on. A couple of stats from tonight's game. Bucks shot 51%, Hawks shot 46%. Hawks shot better from 3, 39% to the Bucks 30. Free throw shooting, Hawks missed 4 free throws, Bucks missed 5, so they shot around the same percentage. Hawks only had 11 turnovers tonight, 33 assists. They didn't win the overall rebounding battle, but they had 11 rebounds for the Bucks 9. They also were very active around, but 6 blocks for the Hawks tonight and 10 steals. So, but the Hawks did have 21 personal fouls, so the Bucks were able to get the free throw line. Obviously, that's very typical of a Giannis game because of how he plays and everything under the sun.
You're going to get those high fouls when you play the Bucks. You just got to try to manage it. It's just something that's going to happen. He's going to get the calls. Then you add in Dame Lillard. Then you add in Kyle Kuzma, who actually was really their X factor, if you ask me, because he was 7 of 10 tonight. I believe he had like 17 points, and I know he had 10 rebounds. I remember that. So it just that was an X factor for them as well. Outside of, like I said, the fourth quarter that Kevin Porter Jr. was having, because I think he scored 12 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So. And I think too, what was big was, the Hawks had got back, tied the game after the 3. I mean, one of the game-changing plays was a Kuzma shot where in that situation, you probably don't want LeVert to gamble. You probably just want him to play straight-up defense, make him contest, end of the shot clock. But because even though it was a rush shot, it's still a wide-open shot. And Kuzma has the ability to just, make those. He's done it before.
Throw it up.
So, obviously, that probably was a big changing point in the game for the Hawks to, actually be able to get back and make the comeback successful and things of that nature. So it's just something that obviously it can kind of grow from and just kind of be like, all right, maybe next time in that position, let's not be overly aggressive, if you don't need to. I get, maybe you were thinking, oh, they have to rush it or I get a steal, but probably don't want to do that there in that spot. But like I said, overall, the Hawks are still, right in the heat of things. Right. To look at the standings right now, the Hawks are only a half game behind the Magic. They're on a 4-game losing streak right now.
Keep it going, Magic. That's what I'm talking about. Keep it going, baby.
And they're 2 games behind the Heat. So they play the Magic 2 more times. They play the Magic twice in the last 4 games of the season. So those could become potentially huge games. And then depending on how play-in things shape up, you might play them again in the play-in as well. And then obviously you have one more matchup with the Heat coming up as well. So, these are obviously very big games. Hawks need that to get the tiebreaker on the Heat, because obviously tiebreakers are very important in that situation. And then kind of just going from there. So based off all of those things, let's talk about Trey tonight. Trey was aggressive in the first half. He finished the game with 28 and 13. Second half, missed a few floaters. especially down the stretch. Don't know if that was tired legs. Obviously, sometimes Trey, floaters are such a skill that you have to develop because you have to have the perfect amount of arc on different types of floaters and things like that because you're not using backboard. You're pretty much you're kind of just like, all right, I'm expecting this to land in the right place. How do you feel like Trey has done recently? I know yesterday wasn't a great game. Luckily, they were able to win a game where he didn't have a great offensive showing tonight. Like I said, more aggressive. But I know some people like to be critical of how he plays down the stretch. So what are you thinking?
I mean, if we're talking about just the past couple of games, I mean, Trey is taking what the defense gives him. Of course, the thing about it is Trey is going to take chances. That's what Hawks fans got to realize. The type of player that Trey is, he'll take chances, and he's going to be sometimes to where you're like, no, yes, and of course in reverse. So tonight, he had a masterful game again, 28 and 13. And honestly, you look at it, if he makes both of the floaters at the end of toward the end of the game, this game could possibly go different because we wouldn't been in let's try to foul him mode or anything like that. The game would have been really tight. Again, I would think it possibly could have been tired legs because it just seemed like he just got there. And if he just had like another inch to maybe his height or something, he'd just been able just to put it right in the basket. But Trey's one of the best guys in the league that had floaters. So I'm gonna chalk it up to tired legs at the end of the game. At the end of the day, we know Trey is always probable with that Achilles and everything as well too. You just got to take a lot of things in consideration. Yes, you do want him to make those shots as the leader of the team, but he still gave you 28 and 13. Last night he gave you 15 and 12, and you win the game. So 15 assists that let you know he's getting other guys involved. He's going to have the usage rate. He's going to have some turnovers. He only had 4 tonight. I know his average is like close to 5. Something to consider on that is he's passing the ball more. You think about that as well. I mean, you don't think he's going to average another extra turnover or 2 because he's passing the ball more, something that he really hasn't been able to do until recently. So you just, you got to think about things from a grain of salt. You think about where Trey has come from, and we know he can put the ball in the basket. We know he can average 30 in a season. We know that. But as far as his passing ability and being able to trust his teammates, that's something that we're seeing that's new. And you got to take the wins with the losses. The wins is he's getting more people involved. Sometimes the losses are the turnovers, even though you do be critical of that because you still want them to cut it down. Ultimately, like again tonight and last night, the Hawks stayed under 15. If they can start staying around the 12, 11 mark on turnovers, I think that'll help them win more games as well.
Yeah, obviously turnovers are a very big part, and sometimes be the Achilles heel for why sometimes they lose games, whether good or bad teams.
Right.
So obviously we'll hope that they can rebound from this game, obviously, and try to get back on the winning track. Because once you get past this stretch, you start to play some of the weaker teams in the league the next couple of weeks, and that's where the Hawks kind of have to really win those games, and that's where you make up ground. But you do obviously need to beat the good teams that you play.
Yeah, starts here.
Especially with this homestand, and with that, the team coming in is Indiana. You play them at back-to-back this week in Atlanta. Atlanta has, Indiana's had Atlanta's number. I've always said that just the way they play is a tough style to play for the Hawks to defend. But I think they did better. I think the first time we played them was when we made the trades, and that was a competitive game. Almost came back and won that one. Now they play almost won that. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I guess what are your quick thoughts on that game?
Well, again, that's going to be a game that's going to be up and down the floor. That's, again, why I feel like the Hawks were managing minutes on the back-to-back for these guys. I believe, guys like Garrison Matthews, Keaton Wallace, all those guys are going to get minutes because it's going to be up and down battle. You think about it, we normally go into high-scoring games against the Pacers, so you want to have the energy to be able to do that. It'd be great if Vit Krejci is be able to come back. If it's not the next game, it'd be wonderful to have him on that Saturday game, some returning and getting some quality minutes for our Atlanta Hawks. Ultimately, 35 and 25, the Pacers. I think if you can at least you want to get both games, but I feel like if you can at least split, you know, so these next two games, I feel like it will bode well for the Atlanta Hawks. Because you know you want to get wins against quality opponents. The Indiana Pacers are the 5th seed right now. I know them and the Bucks are kind of like tied right now, so they're going back and forth. But the Hawks can get them. They're just going to have to continue to play that defense and continue to execute the game plan that's presented to them by the coaching staff.
Yeah, that's really all you can do. And obviously, you probably at least, obviously, in these situations, we play a team multiple times, back to backs, or whether that's just 2 times in 3 days, you want to get at least one of those. You want to win at least one of those games. Then you come out of this homestand about 2-1 to start off. If you're able to split in spaces, obviously a sweep would be great to get that 3-0. But we'll have to see how that all works out for this team. But I think the Hawks are. It seems like the cohesion of the team is starting to really show. And you're kind of starting to see the offensive game, especially. Hawks have been a lot of high scoring games recently. Show, and then obviously trying to make timely stops on defense, I think, is where you really want that to go as well. So we'll have to see how that goes, man. But
right.
I think that's about it for the show. Chris, any last words? Anything you want to say about the game coming up to Hawks fans in general?
Hey, man. I mean, the thing about it is we still have to remain optimistic because we have an opportunity to still make at least a 7th seed. I don't know if we're gonna. I don't know about that 6th seed, but I'm looking at that 7th seed. At least still an opportunity to get there. You set yourself up nicely for that, and then you just got to wait and see what happens in the playoffs. Ultimately, I think Atlanta Hawks fans should more so look at this as, let's see where we are for the rest of the season to see how optimistic we should be going into the next season when we do have Jalen, probably another draft pick or 2, maybe, you know what I'm saying? And like you said, maybe kicking the tires on some of those free agents. It's just, I don't think the Hawks should try to rush anything because, this offseason isn't just too sexy about free agents. It's more so the following offseason, which will be a little better. But ultimately, just stay optimistic, see what this Hawks team can give you. Be happy and look at the progression of Zachary Ricochet. See how these guys that we traded for can really mesh with the team. Again, only being 10, 11 games in to Quinn's system. That is a complicated system. So you got to have that basketball IQ. You got to get used to it as well. Just things to just take under consideration, man. But it's still always let's go Hawks.
Exactly, man. Just gotta keep supporting, keep pushing, and that's what we're gonna do here on Believe in Hawks, and obviously digest Hawks and everything under the sun, man. So I appreciate you definitely tuning on, man. Let people know where they can find you.
Oh man, a few places, man. Of course, A1 Forever Sports. That's my channel on YouTube, man. Come on over and like, comment, and subscribe. Like to have conversations with any and everybody. Falcons, Hawks, Braves. About to crank up some more Braves content because spring training is about over with. It's about to be the regular season. Braves are looking pretty decent. You know what I'm saying? A few guys knocking off some rust, a few guys trying to come back. So definitely going to be picking that up as well. Hawks Digest, like my guy Bryce has been saying, catch me over there. Me and Walter Pollard are over there at Hawks Digest, continuously building that channel with our Hawks content. So come on over there as well. TikTok, the real A1 Forever, Instagram, and Twitter, A1 Forever. Come on over, man. Let's have a sports conversation. Thank you for having me, Bryce.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you for sure. Obviously, guys, y'all can follow me on Twitter, Brycey_2K. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the episode. All my audio listeners, leave a rating and review on Believe in Hawks. You can watch or listen to the podcast on any audio platform available out there that is existing for podcasts. So obviously, I appreciate everybody who lets us be a part of your day, talk about the Hawks. And hopefully next time, we'll be back in action. We'll be talking about a Hawks win. So that's Chris. I'm Bryce. See you next time.
Peace.